What happened after the 1958 Impala? How Chevy fixed their mistake. The 1958 Chevrolet Impala was supposed to be a triumph. Instead, it became one of the biggest embarrassments in GM history. Dealers were furious, customers were confused, and Ford was celebrating. But here's what nobody talks about. What Chevrolet did next changed everything. In just 12 months, they pulled off the most dramatic turnaround the automotive world had ever seen. And the car they created didn't just save Chevrolet, it became an absolute legend. This is the untold story of America's greatest automotive comeback. Let's set the scene. It's late 1958 and Chevrolet is in serious trouble. The Impala that was supposed to dominate the market is sitting on dealer lots, unsold, unwanted. The excessive chrome that looked bold in design sketches now looks desperate and cheap in showrooms. And the sales numbers, devastating. Ford is winning. Chevrolet, America's #1 car brand, is losing market share every single month. In 1957, Chevrolet had sold nearly 1.5 million cars. They were dominant. Then 1958 happened. The entire lineup was redesigned, and the new top-of-the-line Impala was supposed to be the crown jewel. But when customers actually saw the cars, the reaction was confused. The styling was polarizing in the worst way. The quad headlights created a strange wide-eyed look. The chrome covered nearly every surface. It was relentless and not in a good way. Build quality issues started surfacing almost immediately. Panel gaps were inconsistent. Paint wasn't quite right. Electrical problems, suspension components that didn't feel solid. Dealers started calling Chevrolet headquarters. And these weren't polite calls. These were angry, frustrated dealers who'd invested their own money in inventory that wasn't moving. One dealer from Ohio wrote a letter that made it all the way to top management. "I've been selling Chevrolets for 20 years. I've never had to work this hard to convince people to buy one. What happened to the Chevrolet I used to know?" That letter circulated around GM headquarters because it captured something profound. Chevrolet had broken the trust they'd built over decades. But the real problem wasn't just sales, it was trust. Chevrolet had built its reputation on reliability, value, and understanding what Americans wanted. The 1958 Impala suggested they'd lost touch completely. Stock analysts started writing brutal reports. One major Wall Street firm downgraded GM stock, specifically citing concerning trends in Chevrolet's market position. Inside GM headquarters, the mood was dark. Executive meetings that used to focus on growth were now about damage control. By fall 1958, the math was undeniable. If this continued, Chevrolet would lose its position as America's #1 car brand. And once you lose that position, it's incredibly hard to get back. The pressure on Chevrolet's leadership was absolutely crushing because in the late 1950s, car redesigns took 3 to 4 years. Tooling, engineering, design, testing, it was massive and time-consuming, and Chevrolet had less than 12 months to fix everything. Oh well. Summer of 1958. Inside GM Design Studios in Detroit, an emergency meeting is called. This wasn't a regular meeting. This was all hands on deck, the kind where everyone knows the company's future is actually on the line. Harley Earl, the legendary designer who'd shaped GM look for decades, gathered his team. Bill Mitchell, Earl's protege and rising star, was there. Ed Cole, Chevrolet's chief engineer and the genius behind the small block V8, led the engineering discussion. Claire McKitchen, instrumental in the beloved 1955 Chevrolet redesign, joined them. The meeting started with cold, hard data, sales figures showing the decline, customer complaint reports, dealer surveys with satisfaction ratings at historic lows. Us. Quality control reports highlighting issues coming off the assembly line. Then someone read actual customer letters. Real people expressing genuine disappointment. One from a school teacher in Michigan. "I saved for 3 years to buy a Chevrolet Impala. It was supposed to be my dream car. Instead, it's been nothing but problems." The room was silent as these letters were read. These weren't just statistics. These were people whose trust Chevrolet had betrayed. Ed Cole spoke first, laying out the mechanical issues systematically. Suspension geometry, that needed work. Quality control processes that had failed. "We can fix these," he said, "but we need time and commitment." Then Claire McKitchen didn't mince words. "The styling is the problem. We overcomplicated it. We lost the plot. Americans want elegant simplicity, and we gave them chaos. Then Bill Mitchell saw an opportunity. He'd been studying competitor cars and European designs influencing American tastes. He spoke up. "We're trying to fix a car that's fundamentally broken. We can't tweak our way out of this. We need to start over." On admitting complete defeat, writing off millions already invested, all compressed into an impossible timeline, someone from finance spoke up. "A complete redesign in 12 months? That's never been done. The cost would be enormous." Mitchell didn't back down. "The cost of not doing it is higher. We lose the market. We lose our reputation. Is that worth saving a few $1,000,000? The debate went on for hours. Finally, Harley Earl spoke. The legend who defined GM design for a generation. "Bill's right. We can't fix this with chrome and trim changes. The philosophy is wrong. We need to start fresh." Coming from Earl, that admission carried enormous weight. He was saying his own design had failed. The decision went up to top management, and somehow, incredibly, they said yes. Green light for the most aggressive redesign in GM history. Complete do-over. 12 months. No excuses. Bill Mitchell later described it as the most intense pressure he'd ever faced. "We had to create the exact opposite of the 58 and make it unforgettable. Failure wasn't an option. The mission was clear: fix everything, and do it faster than anyone thought possible." So what exactly was wrong with the 1958 Impala? The design team started with brutal honesty. The 58 had too much chrome. One designer counted over 50 distinct chrome elements. The grille, bumpers, side trim, tail light bezels, wheel covers, everything was chrome. It created visual chaos. Your eye didn't know where to look. The quad headlights looked confused in execution. The body lines fought each other instead of working together. Every surface screamed for attention, which meant nothing stood out. One designer put it perfectly. It tried to be everything and became nothing. So for 1959, they went the opposite direction entirely. The new philosophy was radical in its simplicity. Less is more. Elegant over excessive. Timeless over trendy. Bill Mitchell brought in influences that seemed crazy at the time. He'd been studying aircraft design, particularly the horizontal stabilizers of jets, European sports cars with clean, flowing lines, even modernist architecture. The breakthrough came when someone suggested, "What if we made everything horizontal?" The 58 was chaos with different directions fighting each other. What if the 59 was all about horizontal flow? Low, wide, sleek, that became the foundation. Every design element would reinforce that horizontal theme. The exterior transformation was dramatic. They reduced chrome by almost 40%. What remained was used strategically as accent rather than armor. The grille became a simple horizontal statement. Wide, elegant, integrated. The body lines became horizontal, clean, flowing from front to back. But the real genius was in the details. The rear end got those iconic bat-wing fins. They swept up from the rear quarter panels in a smooth, natural curve that felt purposeful, not excessive. Just right. And at the center, those cat's eye taillights. 3 on each side, horizontal ovals that glowed red, instantly recognizable. You could spot a 59 Impala from blocks away just from those lights. The front end was simplified but more aggressive, lower, wider. The proportions were perfect. Long hood, short deck, wide track, all the elements of classic automotive design working together. Inside, the dashboard went from cluttered to sophisticated. Better materials, actual ergonomics. Everything felt more expensive, more thoughtful. And they did all of this in record time. The design team worked around the clock. Weekends didn't exist. Mitchell later said, "We slept in the design studio some nights. There was no time for meetings and politics. We just had to get it done." By late fall 1958, the design was locked in. This wasn't just restyling. This was a complete reimagining of what a Chevrolet Impala should be. Engineering fixes, but here's what separates a pretty car from a great car. What's underneath? What you can't see in photographs or design sketches. What you only discover when you actually drive the car, live with it daily, and put real miles on it. Chevrolet's leadership knew this fundamental truth with absolute clarity. Looking better wasn't enough. Creating elegant styling that photographed beautifully for magazine advertisements wasn't enough. The 1959 Impala had to drive better, feel better, and be built better than the disaster they were replacing. It had to deliver on every promise the beautiful exterior made. Because if it didn't, if customers discovered that underneath the pretty new skin was the same problematic experience, the backlash would be even worse than what they'd faced with the 58. The suspension system was completely redesigned from the ground up. This wasn't a matter of tweaking spring rates or adjusting shock absorber settings. This was fundamental re-engineering of the entire front suspension geometry. The 58 Impala had this vague, floaty, disconnected feeling that owners genuinely hated. It was supposed to feel luxurious and smooth, like you were gliding on a cloud, and in some ways, it did deliver that sensation. But what Chevrolet's engineers failed to understand was that floating on a cloud isn't actually what most people want from their car. They want to feel connected to the road. They want confidence in corners. They want to know exactly what the wheels are doing at, say, given moment. They want control. The 58 suspension geometry created real problems under certain common driving conditions. The front end would wallow unpredictably in corners, especially if you hit a bump or expansion joint mid-turn. The whole car felt uncertain, like it wasn't quite sure where it wanted to go. That lack of confidence was unsettling for drivers and genuinely dangerous in emergency maneuvers. For the 1959 model, Ed Cole's engineering team didn't just modify the existing design, they went back to first principles and redesigned it completely. New suspension geometry with different pickup points and angles. Revised spring rates carefully calibrated to provide the right balance. Different shock absorber mounting locations to improve control without creating harshness. Better bushings throughout the system to reduce unwanted movement while maintaining compliance over rough surfaces. The goal wasn't to make it ride harder or feel sporty in a European sense. American customers still wanted and expected a comfortable, smooth ride, but now the comfort came with actual control and precision underneath. The 59 felt planted, confident, composed. You could take a corner with genuine confidence instead of just hoping for the best. Hit a bump mid-corner and the car would absorb it and keep tracking true instead of wallowing unpredictably. Test drivers reported back that the difference was night and day. The 59 felt like a completely different car. It still rode smoothly and comfortably, but now it also handled competently and predictably. It felt like it weighed exactly what it weighed, responding immediately and accurately to steering inputs. The rear suspension received similar attention. Better spring rates to prevent the rear end from bouncing or hopping under hard acceleration. Improved shock absorbers to control body motion without creating a harsh ride. Modifications to reduce wheel hop, which had been an embarrassing problem on the 58 when you tried to use all that V8 power. But suspension was just one piece of the puzzle. Build quality was equally crucial, perhaps even more important to the average customer. The 1958 Impala had genuinely embarrassing quality problems that surfaced almost immediately after launch. Body panels that didn't quite line up properly, creating visible gaps that looked cheap and poorly assembled. Doors that didn't close with that satisfying, solid thunk that premium cars should have. Trim pieces that felt flimsy or came loose after just a few months of ownership. Paint that wasn't consistent from car to car, with some vehicles showing thin spots or imperfections right off the assembly line. These weren't catastrophic mechanical failures that left people stranded on the roadside, but they created a pervasive impression of cheapness and carelessness that absolutely destroyed Chevrolet's reputation for quality and value. Every time an owner closed their door and heard a tinny, hollow sound instead of a solid thunk, they were reminded that they'd made a mistake buying this car. For 1959, completely new assembly line protocols were implemented throughout Chevrolet's production facilities. This started before the first production car was even built. Manufacturing engineers went through the entire assembly process step by step, station by station, looking systematically for every possible point where quality could slip or variations could creep in. Additional quality control checkpoints were strategically added throughout the production process. Not just at the final inspection stage. The philosophy shifted from catching problems at the end to preventing them from happening in the first place. Check the fit at each stage of assembly. Catch problems early when they're easy to fix. Don't let defects propagate down the line. Panel gaps were specified more precisely with tighter tolerances. The tooling and fixtures that held body panels during welding and assembly were adjusted and improved to ensure consistent, proper. Workers were given better training and clearer standards for what acceptable quality looked like versus what needed to be corrected. The paint process received significant upgrades. Better surface preparation before paint application to ensure proper adhesion and smooth finish. More consistent paint application techniques to eliminate thin spots and variations. Improved quality control of the paint itself to ensure color consistency from batch to batch. The mechanical systems throughout the car got similar systematic attention. Engine options weren't dramatically different for 59 compared to 58, but they were comprehensively refined and improved. Better machining tolerances on critical engine components to ensure smoother operation and more consistent performance. Improved quality control throughout engine assembly to reduce the engine-to-engine variation that had plagued the 58. The result was engines that ran smoother, idled more consistently, and delivered more predictable power across the range. Small improvements individually, but collectively they made a noticeable difference in the ownership experience. Transmission systems received focused engineering attention. The Powerglide automatic transmission, which had been offered in the 58, was recalibrated for smoother, more refined shifts. The manual transmissions got improved synchronizers that made gear changes easier and reduced the grinding that some 58 owners had experienced. Cooling systems were substantially upgraded because overheating had been a real problem in some 58 Impalas, particularly in hot climates or under heavy loads like towing or mountain driving. Larger radiators with better airflow design, improved fan designs that moved more air more efficiently. Better coolant routing throughout the engine to ensure even temperature distribution. Even the electrical system, which had caused persistent headaches and frustration for many 58 owners, was completely overhauled from end to end. Better quality wiring harnesses with improved insulation and more reliable connections. More robust switches and relays that wouldn't fail prematurely. Improved grounding throughout the vehicle to prevent the electrical gremlins that had plagued the 58. The engineering team systematically went through every single service bulletin issued during 58 production. These bulletins documented every common problem, every frequent repair, every complaint that dealers had reported back to the factory. It was a comprehensive catalog of everything that had gone wrong, and they addressed these problems systematically, one by one. Fuel system issues that caused rough running or stalling, fixed with better fuel lines, improved carburetor mounting, and more reliable fuel pumps. Exhaust leaks that created noise and fumes in the cabin, solved with new gasket designs and better quality manifold bolts. Oil leaks that left embarrassing spots on customers' driveways, eliminated with improved gasket materials and better sealing throughout the engine. This was meticulous, detail-oriented, unglamorous engineering work. Not the exciting stuff that gets featured in car magazines or marketing brochures. But it's absolutely what separates truly great cars from mediocre ones that look good in pictures, but disappoint in daily use. Chevrolet's engineers made a solemn promise to themselves and to the company. The 1959 Impala wouldn't just look dramatically better than the 58. It would be genuinely, measurably, undeniably better in every single way that mattered to customers. Better to drive, better to live with, better built. More reliable, more refined, more confidence-inspiring, no compromises, no shortcuts, no hoping that improved styling would distract people from lingering mechanical or quality problems. Fix everything properly and completely. They understood something absolutely crucial that some manufacturers still fail to grasp. You can fool people with styling once. You can win them over temporarily with clever advertising and attractive designs. But if the actual product doesn't deliver on its promises, if the driving experience disappoints, if quality problems emerge after a few months of ownership, customers will never trust you again. They'll tell their friends and family about their bad experience. They'll switch to competitors. And winning them back is exponentially harder than keeping their trust in the first place. Chevrolet couldn't afford to break trust with customers twice in a row. The 58 had already done severe damage. If the 59 had looked beautiful but driven poorly or fallen apart after 6 months, it would have been absolutely catastrophic for the brand, potentially fatal, so the engineering had to be right, not just adequate, not just good enough, genuinely excellent, better than Ford, better than Plymouth, better than Plymouth, better than anything Chevrolet had built before. By December 1958, as the first production 1959 Impalas began rolling off assembly lines, the difference was immediately obvious to everyone involved in the process. Workers on the assembly line noticed that body panels were fitting together more precisely with less shimming and adjustment required. Quality control inspectors were finding dramatically fewer issues that needed correction. Test drivers who evaluated finished cars before they shipped to dealers reported back that these cars felt fundamentally, comprehensively different from the 58s they remembered. The engineering team had accomplished their mission. The car was genuinely ready. Now came the real test, proving it to dealers and customers. Fall of 1958. Chevrolet dealers from across America gathered for their first look at the 1959 models. Remember, these dealers had spent the past year trying to sell the 58 Impala. Many had lost serious money. Some were genuinely angry. The atmosphere was tense. Chevrolet's executives knew this was make or break. If dealers didn't believe in this car, it would fail. The presentation started with acknowledgement, directly. Honestly, we got the 1958 wrong. We know it. You know it, you know it. We heard you, and we're here to show you how we've responded. That took courage, but credibility required honesty. Then they talked about the process, the emergency redesign, the commitment to quality, the systematic fixes, and then, finally, the moment everyone was waiting for. The lights went down, spotlights came up, the covers came off the 1959 Impala. The room went completely silent, not the good kind at first, the terrifying kind. And then someone started clapping, then another. Suddenly, the entire room was on its feet, applauding. Real applause, genuine enthusiasm. Dealers crowded around the car, touching it, opening doors, sitting inside, comparing it mentally to the 58 they'd struggled to sell. The quotes tell the story. This is the Chevrolet America wants. We can actually sell this with confidence. Ford better watch out. The marketing strategy was brilliant, all new all over again. It acknowledged that the 58 had been wrong while emphasizing complete transformation, honest and memorable. Dealers started placing pre-orders immediately. Before the public even saw the car, momentum was building. Pre-orders exceeded the most optimistic projections. Chevrolet knew they had something special, but the real test was still coming. January 1959, showrooms across America opened their doors to reveal the new Impala. And people showed up, not just a few curious shoppers. Lines. Actual lines outside dealerships in major cities. The improved ride and handling was immediately noticeable. It felt solid, connected. The interior impressed people with better materials and thoughtful layout. Word of mouth started working in Chevrolet's favor. People would tell their friends, "You should go see it. It's really good." That genuine endorsement is more valuable than any advertising. The media reaction was equally important. Motor Trend called it the car that saved Chevrolet. Car and Driver praised the dramatic transformation. Even general publications picked up the story. But the real vindication came in sales numbers. January 1959, first month sales exceeded every projection. February, momentum continued. March, Chevrolet retook the #1 position. By year's end, over 1.4 million Chevrolets sold. The Impala became the top-selling full-size car in America. Think about that. In 12 months, Chevrolet went from crisis to championship. From embarrassment to market leader, the cultural impact was immediate. Hollywood featured them in films. Music stars bought them. The 59 Impala became a symbol of American optimism and style. Ford was scrambling. They admitted Chevrolet had caught them off guard. The competition was back on and Chevrolet was winning. But the story gets even better. The 1959 Impala didn't just save Chevrolet in 1959. It created a legacy still alive today. The styling set the template for Chevrolet's early 1960s lineup. Those cat's eye taillights became one of the most recognizable design elements in automotive history. In lowrider culture, the '59 Impala became the car. The styling looked even better lowered. The proportions worked beautifully. Lowrider culture took the '59 and made it art. Custom paint, hydraulics, detailed chrome work, custom interiors. These weren't just cars, these were cultural statements. And that culture continues today. The '59 Impala is deeply embedded in Chicano culture. It appears in murals, music videos, films. It's in hip-hop culture too. Rappers have name-dropped it for decades. Having a well-done '59 Impala was a status symbol. Hollywood never stopped loving it. The '59 has appeared in countless movies and TV shows over the decades. In the collector market, original 1959 Impalas command serious money. $30,000 to $50,000 for decent examples. Fully restored examples, especially convertibles, reach $80,000 to $100,000 or more. And here's the ironic twist. The 1958 Impala is now collectible too. Rare, quirky, interesting. Good examples sell for $20,000 to $40,000. So the car that nearly destroyed Chevrolet is now sought after. The failure became a footnote. The comeback became legend. What can we learn from Chevrolet's turnaround? First, listen to criticism. Instead of defending the '58, they listened to feedback and faced the brutal truth. That takes organizational humility. Second, act boldly. They didn't do a minor refresh. They started over completely. Fundamental problems require fundamental solutions. Third, invest in quality, not just marketing. The car itself was the solution. Substance beats spin every time. Fourth, speed matters. 12 months from decision to production. They moved fast and maintained quality through clear priorities and total commitment. Fifth, trust can be rebuilt. The '59 didn't just sell well. It rebuilt trust through honesty, accountability, and follow-through. Sixth, culture matters. Collaboration, transparency, and shared commitment made success possible. Seventh, learn from failure, but don't let it define you. They understood what went wrong, but moved forward with a clear vision. These lessons apply today. When Tesla faced Model 3 production problems, they fixed processes rapidly. When companies face crises, successful responses are bold and complete, not timid and incremental. Chevrolet wrote the playbook in 1958 and 1959, and it's still relevant today. In 1 year, Chevrolet went from embarrassment to excellence, from crisis to championship, from the worst Impala to the best Impala. The 1958 taught them humility. The 1959 proved their greatness. Together, they created one of the most dramatic turnarounds in automotive history. And the legacy lives on. Every time you see a '59 Impala at a car show, every time one appears in a music video or film, the car isn't just remembered, it's celebrated. It's immortal. So here's my question for you. Would you rather own the rare, controversial 1958 Impala or the legendary, iconic 1959? And why? Drop your choice in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you love this comeback story, next week we're diving into another classic car that almost destroyed its maker but ended up saving the company. You won't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and thank you for watching. These aren't just cars, they're history. They're lessons about responding to failure. Thank you for being part of the Regal Rides community. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep the classics alive.